Hey guys, late Boy Scout. I'm here with Don. Hey man.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. So we've been shooting a little bit today. Don is one of my best friend's dad, and he brought out a gun for me to look at and for all of us to shoot today, and tell him a little bit about how you got a hold of this gun, and this is all real interesting stuff to hear. So let's hear about it.
I'm in Vietnam, mortared all the time. We had to go out and we would prepare temporary landing zones for the sorties that would take the infantry and fly them in, but we'd go in first, prepare it, and then they would come in and fly in, and of course there would be a major battle. French Fort was one of the main ones they would hit, and of course the one in the Parrot Beak was also there, and Cu Chi they hit a lot, and the like. There was a lot of combat experience in that particular area. French Fort is called Fire Support Base Santa Barbara. It had minefields around it. We had to clear one section because monsoons had drifted and we didn't know where all the mines were, so we left 3/4 of the base camp covered, and then a whole open area here that you could just walk in and walk out. Of course, it was at berms, and they had twin 40s all the way around it, and they got hit all the time. One night they basically came in from the area where there was no minefields, but we had twin 40s on each semi-corners that are on the base camp. It cost a lot of lives for them to do it. They didn't overrun us, but they got right up to the berms and the like, and then after that was over is when I picked up the SKS that we fired today.
So that was left from some guy who died out there.
He was holding it. I mean, it was right there.
Gosh.
I mean, we go out there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but most of them died.
Yeah.
And we would go out in the morning and count bodies and the like. And of course, as engineers, sometimes we'd just cut a hole in the ground. Dao Cheng, or Cu Chi, which is a major base area, they would just dig a hole and scoop all the bodies in the hole and then bury the hole.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's all you could do. And of course, we would take the weapons and the like, and that's where Fire Support Base Santa Barbara French Fort is where I picked up the weapon we fired today. Now it was it was almost brand new. I mean, you fired it today. It's in the same condition that it was then.
Yeah.
And we saw on the stock, I think it's a 1944 version.
Right. Yeah.
So it was made in 1944 in Russia. Then they would ship it through. China on the railways and the like, and then they would come into North Vietnam and give it to North Vietnamese, but they would stop and they would stamp it with Chinese, and you saw the Chinese markings.
Yeah.
So they would say, well, the Chinese, we're supporting you, not the Russians, because the Russians and the Chinese hate each other's guts. The Vietnamese and the Chinese hate each other's guts. I mean, the whole area, nobody likes anybody in that particular area. But that's basically, like I said, and I don't know if I told you this, but we were under fire in the base camp where I was at. 2-3 times a night for 6 months straight, and you could almost set your clock by it. And initially they wouldn't let us fire because we were right by Tay Ninh, and they wouldn't let us fire, and the North Vietnamese would come in and set up their mortars and the like, 2 clicks or so, 3 clicks, whatever it is, off our perimeter, but we couldn't fire. And a lot of times the chopper pilots would be up there and they'd circle around and they'd see them and the like, they'd request to fire, and of course they said, oh, you can't fire because it's in this civilian area and the like, and you don't know if that's really the North Vietnamese. We knew it was. The thing that that really struck me that was very, very interesting is that the NVA, the North Vietnamese, and that's what we fought. We fought the NVA. This is 1969. It's the height of the war, and the like. And the NVA, they're good soldiers and the like, but they could never compete one-on-one in any battle with American forces. They never did. But after the war, General Westmoreland spoke to General Gap the first time in a kind of a meeting, and General Westmoreland, and this is in his memoirs and the like, but he said, General Gap, you never beat us on the battlefield ever once, Of course, we had already given up and they'd taken over Vietnam. And General Gap said we didn't have to. because we knew you were going to leave. When the South would be, brought back into the North, and there'd be one Vietnam, there'd be a lot of bloodletting and a lot of killing, like the Khmer Rouge.
Right.
Didn't happen. They actually joined together. They did some, they took care of some of their aggression on some of the people, and a lot of them, escaped. We had to leave a lot, and those guys, if they worked for the Americans and the like, they were shot, just in the streets. Of course, you saw that, but later on it just sort of calmed down and the like. But as far as the war is concerned, and as far as the 25th, we did our job there in blocking them. And in fact, when they came into Vietnam, they came through Laos and then came in the highlands and then came down QL1 from the DMZ. They just came, swept down, and pushed them right out. When the real plan was to come through Cambodia, and they had a large weapons cache. I mean, it was the biggest we'd ever seen. Now, that was what I prepared the MSRs and the like to go in 1970. And when they went in 1970, we went in, and it was just a short distance to cross the river there, and I can't remember what the river is called, but we started coming on sites where they had just abandoned their site. Nice. And they had all those weapons and all the ammunition and then artillery pieces, and it was like, well, why are they just pulling back? Because they didn't want to engage and lose that kind of a battle, because we didn't leave until 75, and actually we were still very strong in 70, 71, and 72 and the like. So they just pulled back and gave it all up.
So they're more willing to lose the weapons than lose the lives at that point,
and all the supplies, food and everything. But and there's a thing on TV I saw recently where the colonel who was in charge of that operation was going in. He was surprised because they were pulling back, and he was discovering all of this stuff. And the political system said, and I don't know who did this, but they said, stop. Because we were in Cambodia, of course that's a neutral country supposedly, but they stopped us and pulled us back and pulled us out. But we did enough damage and the like that it bothered them, and then they came back in and reoccupied that area. But most of that was it was just a terrible tragedy that the war would be so conducted by the Pentagon and DC and the like in that particular area, and because we could have wiped that whole thing out, and probably the North could not have massed as much as they did and taken out the South. That could have happened.
So the weapons caches you're talking about that you discovered, those are not the weapons that, like for instance, the SKS is one of the ones that came about. You were saying from the nightly raid, right? So, but then others, were those weapons brought back as well, the ones from the caches, or not?
Well, it all depends. We would we would just. Everybody had an opportunity to take, like I say, 4, and then all of a sudden it was down to 1.
Okay.
So everybody wanted to take an AK-47 back, but that was fully automatic with the toggle switch. So they said you can't do that. So a lot of them were coming back with the SKS.
Now your SKS has something interesting on it that can't. You said it's illegal.
Oh, the bayonet.
The bayonet.
Yeah.
So that's different from. So the Type 56 SKS I have is one
blade.
It's a blade, and it's one of lots and lots of variants out there, and it's got, like you said, the blade on it.
And those that they sell today in the market and the like has the blade.
Yeah. So the poker that yours has got, that one was illegal from Geneva Convention.
Geneva Convention indicated that the poker caused too much damage, and they said, which is kind of funny because the slicing blade going into you causes enough damage to kill you. But it was you couldn't have that. But the Russians and the Chinese and all of those, they put those on there because it was the most effective. You could poke somebody and pull it back out very easily, where with a blade sometimes you'd get stuck in a bone or whatever. I never had any bayonet fights, so I'm just talking from what they said. But the idea is that the blade could be stitched up, whereas the poker less. It would cause more damage. Harder to repair, harder to survive. And I've never seen one on any other weapon in the United States. Anybody has a souvenir.
I'll have to look around.
Some of them they don't even have a bayonet.
Oh, sure.
But this one is attached right to it, and you've got
Yeah.
pictures of that where it just pops right
Yeah,
out.
it pops right up, and it folds back down like any other, but it's also got that poker on it with that sort of flat, almost like a flathead screwdriver, but with sharp corners on it. It's, as I was saying earlier, we were kind of looking at it. It's not sharpened like a knife right now. Like you couldn't cut your finger on it, easily, but it's sharp.
It would go in you very quick.
And with a little bit of velocity, a little bit of a jerk, you'd hurt somebody in a second. So
there were all sorts of other weapons. I actually picked up a 9mm chrome-plated Russian pistol, and I wanted to bring that back, but I had to make a choice because I could only bring back one. I had to make a choice between
between the two
and the chrome-plated 9mm.
Do you know what kind of 9mm it was?
I don't.
High power by any chance? Maybe
high power.
Maybe a high power.
It was supposedly a brigade commander's, a North Vietnamese brigade commander's weapon.
But it was
chrome plated so that it.
But it was
wouldn't
9mm,
rust.
not a 9x18 like a Makarov or something. Could have been a Makarov.
Yeah.
Well, in any case.
But I really thought about bring that back. But I made the right choice, I think. So.
I think it's so cool.
But Captain Brown, he and I were good friends. I got in there a month before, and when he came in, I was sort of his guide and to tell him to keep his head down and not get killed. And when incoming rounds, don't run for the bunker, lay on the ground, and all those sort of neat ideas and the like. But I asked him, I said, how are you going to get all those weapons back? You can't do that. You're going to go. Unfortunately, for him, his father died in Texas, and they sent him home on emergency leave, which was fortunate for him because he was on military transport. He loaded all those weapons in the military. They landed in a military base on customs, and he put them in his car and took them home.
You're kidding.
And so to this day, he has this huge conclave of 100, well, I don't know, about 25 weapons. He just bought, and he got them all home.
Oh, man.
Lucky man.
Don, you're a lucky man too.
Thank you.
And thanks for chatting with me. And thanks for telling us this story. And that was a fun gun to shoot. I had a joy playing with it today. So we're here with Don again, vet, and awesome stories. And we really appreciate your time chatting with us.
Okay. Thank you.
Boy Scout, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys later.